Good morning, everybody. Did y'all hear about the one about the wife who was in the kitchen, who kind of was overheard saying, "Sweetie pie, what would you like for dinner this evening? Chicken, lamb, or turkey?" And the husband, who's watching the reruns of the sporting events in the living room, turns down the volume a little bit and says, "Oh, thank you. How about chicken?" And the wife says, "No, I wasn't. You're having soup. I was talking to the cat." Anyway, I always like to start out talks with a little bit of humor. I think churches need as much humor as they possibly can work into the program. And once again, I'm going to be talking about an Ozark Mountain Daredevil tune. Those guys are just brilliant. Their first album's still my favorite, although the It'll Shine When It Shines album is a really good one too. And I've never done a talk about It'll Shine When It Shines, and since you all have heard some other talks I've done, for instance, if you want to get to heaven, you got to raise a little hell. That's actually the title of one of their songs. And then one of my favorites is called Black Sky, not because of the name necessarily, but some of the lyrics are, "It's everything you do and nothing that you did." And I'm not going to get into the metaphysical interpretation of that, but all their songs are just really full of wonderful metaphysical interpretation, in my opinion. So what's this to do with anything? It'll shine when it shines. Well, the lyrics, part of the lyrics are, "Seems like everyone is out looking for the sun, singing rain and pain on he who hesitates. But it'll shine when it shines. You might think I'm wasting time, but I'm just a good old boy that's learned to wait. Just a good old boy that's learned to wait." So this idea of waiting is really unpopular. So unpopular you can see people's blood pressure actually rising as they have to wait in traffic or have to wait in line at the grocery store. And I think the main reason is our culture highly values speed, volume, distraction, instantaneousness. So the idea of learning to wait seems foolish and counterproductive to our busy, hectic, urgent, and often overwhelming lives. And although almost everyone intellectually understands the value in serenity and peace of mind, our habits and everyday choices seem to add more and more speed and complication to the centrifugal force that propels the merry-go-rounds we call our lives. The drum beat behind, "I just don't have enough time." Or how about the drum beat behind the, "I just am so stressed out," gets louder and louder, even as we invent new technological gadgets under the guise that these new gadgets will somehow simplify our lives, especially if the gadgets themselves get faster and faster. Is this making any sense at all? Yeah. In order to tone down the negative connotations attached to the idea of waiting or learning to wait, we're going to explore these ideas as a means of connecting with the spirit of guidance and wisdom located inside of you, within your own consciousness, and perhaps part of what underlies the notion that all good things come to those who wait. And I remember as a little kid, I hated that. "Oh, you got to wait. Oh, no, I got to go. First of all, let's explore the results of not learning to wait and staying attached like Velcro to the increasing speed and pressures of not learning how to wait. Let me see if I did it. Here's a quote from Macneth Arsawan. It says, "And today, despite our technology and science, people are most insecure because they persist in thinking about and going after things that have no capacity to give them security. this is not good. And I'm not talking about you all. One thing I try to remember every time I give a talk is I have no clue how other people ought to live their lives. I'm trying to figure out how to do mine. So although from time to time it may sound like I'm kind of preaching, although I'm a minister, I'm actually just sharing some ideas that may or may not be helpful to you all based on my experience, because that's all I have. I don't have your experience. But this is something I found myself tugging with, and that is, no matter how good it's looking on the outer, it doesn't necessarily create more security. We have all the information that we need, and information sharing and gathering are pretty much down pat. With a few keystrokes, we can literally access trillions of bits of information. We can actually stay in touch on a constant basis with anybody in the world. So our insecurities stem not from the lack of information or from the lack of sharing information, but from the lack of guidance and wisdom, which are states of spiritual awareness that are not found in the outside world of speed or technological advances. Technological advances are great, especially in the area of golf club technology. This is where it really comes in handy. However, these technological advances have no capacity to add depth and meaning to our lives, unless, of course, somebody invents a putter that works every time, but I haven't found that in my quest. This next slide shows how easy it is to stay spiritually asleep. As we know from studying here at Unity, there are 4 functions of consciousness: intuition, feeling, sensation, and thinking. In this particular illustration, spirit or intuition is asleep, where feelings and thinking are just going on and on and on. The mind's trying to figure out, what if only, maybe I could, I think, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Feelings are dealing with hurt, fear, guilt, sadness, anger, or elation, and happiness, and zest. But this shows why it's difficult to spiritually awaken, and we hear that term more and more and more in our culture, to spiritually awaken. And this is part of the reason why. This is a feeling, thinking tug of war. Now, I don't know if anybody else here can identify with this, but this is what I experience on a daily basis. Of course, this is me. This is the guy experiencing the feeling, thinking tug of war. The 2 characters in these overheads have not learned to wait or connect with the still small voice of spiritual guidance and wisdom. They are therefore stuck with trying to figure out how to do life by depending on their thoughts and feelings. And that's okay. Thoughts and feelings, it's really important for me to understand that thoughts and feelings are good, but they're not necessarily the best way to figure out how to do life. Here is a slinky representing your thoughts and feelings. I don't know have you ever had one of those days where you kind of just went back and forth like this? It's like you'd have a thought, then a feeling, then a thought, then a feeling, and this is just the chatter that goes on in your brain all day long. Well, what about that? Well, what about that? Well, I thought of that. Well, what about her? Can't believe, well, I'm not sure. What do you think I ought to do? Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, where all along underneath is this spiritual resource of consciousness that if we became quiet and silent and meditated, we could dip down into it and figure it out. Now, this is fun. This is fun sometimes to continue the thought and feeling deal, and unless you want some kind of lobotomy, this is going to continue. So I'm not saying it's bad, but there's a better source of guidance and wisdom that oftentimes we don't access because we're so busy trying to figure it out or think it out. I got an email from somebody just the other day that said, "Well, I'm waiting until it feels right." Waiting around until it feels right. Well, the problem with that is, after it feels right, it's not going to feel right. I mean, it's just like the wind. Here in Greene County, if you notice, the wind will be blowing right out of the north, then it'll be blowing right out of the east, then the west. It just continues to change. And that's what happens emotionally to human beings. So I better not double down on how I feel necessarily, or what my best thinking is. And just because I think something doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. But I'll get into that a little bit later. Here's the problem with the never-ending challenge of trying to figure things out intellectually. And it's the quote by Anthony DeMello. It says, "There is only one cause of unhappiness: the false beliefs that you have in your head, beliefs so widespread and commonly held that it never occurs to you to question them." And again, I'm just talking about me. You may not have any false beliefs in your head, but I sure have. And the only way I have figured out that they were false beliefs and no longer serve me was through the process of contemplative prayer and meditation. One of my favorite quotes is, "The unexamined life is not worth living," by Socrates. And one of the things this church focuses on is examining your own life and doing the spiritual work of prayer and meditation that will get you to the answers that we're all looking for. And here's Sherlock Holmes. He's been kind of popular on TV here in the last little while, searching for what he needs to figure out, trying to find his own path to happiness and fulfillment and meaning, knowing that it's located in the depths of his consciousness. Dr. Watson doesn't have the answer for him. He has the answer for himself. Your spouse does not have the answer for your life. You do. But guess what? You don't have the answer for your spouse in your head. You've got erroneous beliefs that you need to work on through prayer and meditation. So it's totally 100% up to us to discover our own internal compass, a spiritual vision compass, our own source of the guidance and wisdom we need to do life well. Well, what happens if we don't put on our Sherlock Holmes hat and participate in the inner work we need to do in order to operate on a spiritual level of consciousness, compared with the thinking, feeling tug of war? Well, two thoughts come to mind. One is Mr. Magoo, and the other one is Wile E. Coyote. Now, Mr. Magoo, in this illustration, is tipping his hat. He's got that cane or umbrella, and we all know Mr. Magoo. Mr. Magoo is this cartoon character who didn't know where he was going. Very similar to my path in life. Having no clue where I was going, but kind of looking like he did because his hat's looking good, his cane's looking good, and doesn't he have a nice vehicle to drive? The problem is, every time he continues to follow his not having a clue where he's going, he ends up in danger. But he's trying to figure it out. I've tried to figure it out. The next cartoon character, that's the Roadrunner, for those who don't know. And here's Wile E. Coyote. He's coming up with a plan. Every cartoon about Wile E. Coyote, he always had a plan. And this is the intellectual part of our consciousness, coming up with another good plan. Okay, what happens? Well, he's going to do some research. He's going to hit the internet and do some research. Boy, don't you feel spiritually whole after a couple of hours doing that. And it's fun. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying there's something more to it than that. So he does his research, and then he goes to the store and gets his product line that he needs in order to really be successful this time. So he's ready to go. He's about ready to light the fuse and finally track down the Roadrunner. And there he is, almost reaching his goal. And then at the end, oops, he needs help. It didn't quite work out. And even if you do succeed in terms of what your brain tells you, and you reach the highest rung on the ladder, the problem is you may have put the ladder on the wrong wall. Because there are a lot of people that are successful. I was real successful in a lot of ways and was looking good, but I was not in very good spiritual or emotional shape because I was doing the Mr. Magoo, Wile E. Coyote trick of not really knowing where I was going. That's why if you do the work and do the meditation, do the contemplative prayer and meditation, and get your guidance from that source instead of your best thought or the way you feel, things are going to start getting a whole lot better. As I've said from time to time, My favorite definition of meditation is a definition they use in India. And that definition is the end of suffering. That doesn't sound too bad, does it? The end of suffering and the mastery of the art of living. That's what you get for free. But you know, meditation doesn't have a channel on TV trying to sell you stuff late at night. You know, you don't have to call in your MasterCard number and the last 3 digits on the back of your card in order to purchase the end of suffering. It comes free if you do the work. There's another lyric in the Ozark Mountain Daredevil tune, Black Sky. And it talks about like a diamond that's a hiding in the lost and found. And that's where we find it. We find the diamond of success, the diamond of meaning, the diamond of joy, the diamond of happiness, the diamond of contentment inside of us, in the lost and found. That part that, you know, we look to last. You know, in all the stories about the search, the people that are searching go out on the trail and they look far and wide and they can't find what they're looking for. And when they come back, they finally look and find it in themselves. That's what this process is all about. This next illustration, by Jack Weens, by the way, is what it looks like before doing this work. Or this is what the unexamined life looks like. And what she has is part of her unconsciousness that is shrinking the aperture of her heart, not allowing much love to come out and not much love to come in. And this is basically the situation that I sure have found myself in, and I think a lot of people have found themselves in over the years. And they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to get in touch with their feelings. And all that's good. It's really important to do all those things. But they haven't done the inner work to unblock the blockage that just shows up by doing life. Here's an illustration of what it looks like by participating in a daily meditation practice. Before, after. Before, and after. And the thing is, nothing has to change in her life in order to go from here to here, except for her to take the time to get in touch with what's inside of her. And you know, we get so caught up about what other people are thinking about us and what this is happening and all this stuff. And on balance, it really doesn't matter all that much, especially if we haven't first done the work. A fast or distracted mind is upset. And whether or not you can identify with that in terms of your own experience, I'm sure you've seen other people with fast and distracted minds, and guess what? They're upset. And you know, upset's way overrated for a good time. I'm telling you what, it just is not all that much fun. Although, if you get good at it, it becomes a skill, and we don't like to give up things we get good at. Now, isn't that weird? You know, if I'm good at being upsettable, becoming peaceful is going to be real difficult for me because I don't want to give up that skill of being upsettable. And a lot of this happens on an unconscious level, and I'm not going to get into any of that today. But a slow mind is healthy. And you're the one that can determine whether you have a fast mind or a slow mind. And the last idea is a still mind is divine. And that's where we get to from time to time by doing this meditation work. It's like every once in a while you just hit that gap and boy howdy, you're filled, and it's like, everything's going to be okay. Like that old Muddy Waters tune, everything's going to be all right this morning. And you know it down to your spiritual DNA. But you just have to do the work. You have to show up on a daily basis, in my opinion, to find this. If you don't do this, this is what Marvin Anderson, who is a metaphysics teacher up at the Unity School of Christianity when I was going to school up there back in 1985 and 86. He said that conversation we have in our mind, or this slinky between thoughts and feelings, it just goes on and on and on and on. And we wake up, there it is. We go to lunch, there it is. We have a phone call, there it is. He calls that the drunken monkey. And that's why I illustrated it in a couple of my books as the drunken monkey. The drunken monkey likes to get his way or her way. The problem is, this is what becomes our default conflict resolution style. And that is my drunken monkey trying to talk to your drunken monkey to tell your drunken monkey why my drunken monkey is right and how your drunken monkey is wrong. And again, I don't know whether you've had these experiences or not, but if you need more detail, I'd be glad to share more detail after the talk in terms of how it's worked for me. I'm going to leave you with 4 quotes about calming down, about finding the source of magic in your own consciousness. One's from Pascal, and he says, all our miseries derive from not being able to sit quietly in a room alone. If you can get comfortable with you, guess what? You can get comfortable with other people. If you can get comfortable with you, guess what? You can get comfortable with life. But if you haven't gotten comfortable with you, odds are the comfort level isn't going to expand being around other people or dealing with life in general. Eckhart Tolle, wisdom comes with the ability to be still, to just look and just listen. No more is needed. Being still, looking and listening activates the non-conceptual intelligence within you. Let stillness direct your words and actions. And I was going to read you 4 quotes, but I'm going to just read 3. The time's slipping away a little bit. The last quote is, the noise of the outer world will control your attention, control your mind, and control your life until you do. Now here's some signs and symptoms of detaching from the noise of the outer world and finding the still small voice, which is known as the kingdom of God within you, through the daily practice of meditation. This is what you have to be on watch for. A tendency to think and act spontaneously rather than on fears based on past experiences. An unmistakable ability to enjoy each moment. A loss of interest in judging other people. A loss of interest in interpreting the actions of other people. And boy, will you have a lot more time on your hands. A loss of interest in conflict. A loss of interest in being right. A loss of interest in drama. And you'll get a lot more time to deal with other things when you lose your interest in drama. Frequent episodes of appreciation. Contented feelings of connectedness with others and nature. Frequent attacks of smiling. An increased tendency to let things happen rather than make things happen, and a loss of the ability to worry. And I'm going to leave you with this idea that I heard at a meeting a couple of days ago. And she misspoke. She meant to say something different, but I wrote down exactly what she said, and it's just great. She said, how often has your life been adversely affected by what has happened to you in the future? That's just stuff the drunken monkey's making up. You know? The good news is that we already have everything we need in order to consciously plug into the presence, power, guidance, and wisdom of God. We simply need to do the contemplative work to find it, explore it, and follow it. Please join me in prayer. Thank you, God, for the understanding that it's your good pleasure to give us the kingdom and the clear advice to seek first the kingdom of God, and that the kingdom of God is within each one of us. Help us to remember that seeking your kingdom is an inner search, and that the light that we attempt to find and capture in the outer world will never be enough. May we gratefully know that it'll shine when it shines, and in fact, the light is already shining. We ask that you help us remind each other to find the light in the silence, and then celebrate the light that we find with one another, remembering that in the stillness of this moment, there is peace.